Welcome back. This is the Solvable Mysteries podcast. My name is Joras. I'm joined by Glenn Heikoff, as always. How are you feeling, man? How is the Friday evening in California?
Man, I'm excited because we have like an interesting couple of pieces of things to go over. Actually, it's interesting. I came into this evening pre-show having one set of expectations, and then what you just showed me before the show kind of. I mean, my mind is actually changing as I'm talking right now because I'm trying to process, I guess, some of this. But anyways, we're going to go over it on the show today. But it's I guess the one thing is, and I know we said this before the Kristen Smart case as well, but we also did see some movement there. It looks like in a pretty definitive direction, and I think that's the case today too with on Delphi, when the thing we're going to talk about today, right?
Yeah, Delphi Murders, man. Definitely looks like Delphi is finally moving in a definitive direction, let's say, because for the longest time, Delphi looked to me personally unsolvable. But I feel if I understand what's happening currently, there's a lot more media coverage about Delphi. A lot of content creators are back talking about this case, just the same as we are doing right now. There's a lot of movement here. I guess, it's only right that Delphi has been such a big part of our podcast in the past. So I think, we have to get back, and I guess we have to conversate about like the latest developments in this case. And there's a bunch to discuss for sure. So I guess, yeah, there isn't going to be a very structured manner of handling this episode. I don't have like a case introduction or anything like that, because I would assume that everyone who's on this podcast, they are already familiar with the Delphi case. If you're not, I mean, we had made podcasts about this case in the past, even though I suggest you not watching them because they're outdated at this point and you could probably find better content online. But I guess, we're just here to take this case to the next level and talk once more about the Delphi stuff. So, without any further ado, we're going to be discussing the Kegan Kline and Tony Kline connection to the case. I think we talked about Kegan Kline the last time we did an episode on the Delphi murders. At that particular point in time, to me personally, it seemed like Kegan was just another name being thrown out by the media, just like James Chadwell. Remember that guy? Had absolute no connection, I believe, to Delphi, but we still made an episode about it. But this time, we were proven wrong because now there's an actual concrete connection between a suspect and Liberty German, from what I've gathered, man. So we have a bunch to talk about today, but I want to get your initial thoughts. Like, are you shocked to find out there is an actual connection between a suspect and the girls?
Yeah, I mean, if what this transcript seems to point at is true, and of course, we're just giving our opinions and reactions to things today. We're not sharing anything that hasn't been shared already by other shows, but I think anybody that likes to hear our opinions on things might want to hear what we have to say about this. Yeah, I mean, it kind of answers a lot of questions for me. I mean, how do you feel about this just initially as you start to get through the material? I mean, I think both you and I might also learn some stuff from each other because it sounds like we both had very specific focuses on different sets of research materials that overlap today.
Yes,
Is that,
yes,
is that right? Yeah.
exactly. Yes, yes, man. Because when initially Kegan Kline's connection came up, I believe it was late last year, late 2021. Even I have this news article from 2021 December 7th, so last year. And the title of the headline says, "Man behind Anthony Schott's account charged for CP." Let's say CP. Does docs don't tie him to Delphi case. So you know what I mean. Docs don't tie him to Delphi case. So, but these are the documents that were released initially. There.
Yeah.
I think
Arrest records and stuff, right? Not really. Yeah.
yeah, so just to answer your question, man, when you asked like, am I surprised? Yeah, I'm quite surprised because back then, late last year, it didn't seem like there was any connections, and I was like catfishing, like Liberty German, because let's remember Abigail Williams did not have a phone, so the only person who could have been catfished was Liberty. And back then I was thinking to myself, Liberty German getting catfished by this Anthony Schatz, like, I don't know. It feels like just another media frenzy is happening. Like, what are the chances, right? But and even the media was like, man behind Anthony Schott's account charged for CP, for having CP on the phone. But the case documents don't tie this Anthony Schatz account to the Delphi case. And we have the case documents. I think this is the list of the charges. So we can see that, it's the same Kegan Anthony Kline right here. And we can see that the charges began in, like, the first charges are, child exploitation, like some very dark stuff here, but we can see that these things are happening even before the Delphi case. This is on the 25th. This is the funny, this is, and I'm just realizing this, dude, and I know you probably want to step in, but like, let me just tell you one thing that I just found pretty interesting. So these are the this is the actual report about Kegan Anthony Kline's case files, and we can see that the first charge comes from 2016, which happened, I believe, on May 17th, child exploitation with intent to arouse or satisfy the sexual desires of any. Okay, so this is happening a little bit less than a year before the Delphi murders took place. But look at this, dude, look at this. The second charge came from February 25th, 2017. Possession of CP. So Kegan Kline had CP, and they found CP on 2017 February 25th. And you know what else happened on February 25th? Look, man. Look what else happened on February 26th, February 25th, 27th. Look, man. FBI searches Peru home, finds no link to Delphi killings. February 25th. Now, when we first covered this case, I believe back in 2020 or even 2019, when we even had no idea about who Kegan Kline was, I believe we looked into all of these subsequent home raids. And I specifically remember talking about the home raid in Peru that happened on the 25th. And I was like, that's an interesting home raid. I wonder what's that all about. So, now we actually know that this raid was actually that of Kegan Kline. So that's how that home raid connects. And look, dude, the raid happened on the 25th. So when we go back to the complete list of charges that Kegan Kline has been charged for, you can see that most of these subsequent charges, and there's like a lot of them, right? There's like a lot of them that I guess start from, the 25th, and I don't want to read out all of them. It's mainly related to the guy having CP. Most of it happened after the raid, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's another talking point. But yeah, dude, I knew you wanted to step in. So anything you want to add to this?
So it's interesting on this transcript of this big long. Well, it wasn't really that long. The
But
transcript is.
I feel like, dude, sorry, man, but I feel like before we jump into the transcript, I want to give like the presentation of how it even transpired.
How we got the sorry, I only mentioned the transcript, so yeah, let me just.
Man,
there's a transcript we'll talk about later. The only reason why I mention it is in this transcript and sort of the introductory phase,
Yes.
which goes really long. It mentions this this part that you're talking about here. I guess the one thing that was novel about it. So yeah, he got caught for something entirely, well, they thought at the time maybe unrelated to this case, but they mentioned to him that apparently this Dropbox account, which may or may not have been his, but he was apparently using, had this huge trove of, like you said, prohibited
CP.
materials. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, materials you do not want to ever have in your possession or even be looking at. And apparently they caught a bunch of other people because of him. So it was interesting. He wasn't even aware of that. That way, I mean, he was playing dumb in a lot of this thing. But okay, yeah. Anyway, I just thought that I would throw that in, that this period before, like the murders, when he first starts getting in trouble for
Yes.
doing some pretty awful stuff. Yeah, that was one of the things that turned up, was that there was this whole bunch of materials and things that were just, I guess, beyond, if people wonder like what we're talking about, and we're going to talk about kind of descriptions of things that for one person maybe somebody could, and he does, someone could deny and say they were underage at the time also, or they weren't that far off the ages of these people. But it becomes kind of clear, I think, especially for what you're just outlining, what he's charged with. No, these are extraordinarily vile materials that neither us nor I would even feel comfortable describing with our own voices on YouTube.
Yeah, totally, man. And really quickly, because I think it's about time. Sorry, man, for like trying to like micromanage this episode, because it's confusing, and I want to make it as less confusing as possible for the audience members, because I feel like
Yeah, totally.
that's what our audience very much appreciates. So let's just jump into these transcripts. What the hell are these transcripts? What the hell are we talking about? Why the hell are we even doing this episode this week? And that's because a podcast called the Murder Sheet podcast. I believe the one of the co-hosts is an attorney from Indiana, and another host is, I believe, a reporter that works for Business Insider or something like that. And they made a podcast, and they were following the case. They were following the Delphi case, because obviously they're both from Indiana, and I think they cover other Indiana related cases. And now this attorney, obviously he's in the legal business, right? So he knows where to look for information, and he was on one of these websites, court websites, Delphi websites, I don't know, some sort of a governmental Delphi websites. And by a complete miracle, or like a stroke of luck, someone who ran that government website accidentally had two transcripts published. And this guy, one of the hosts from the Murder Sheet podcast, he managed to snag both transcripts. And I think this happened like maybe a few months ago or something like that, just to give some timeline context to the audience, right? And now he gets those two transcripts. He's like, oh my God, this is new information, never before released to the public. He goes back to the website sometime later, and the website had already deleted those transcripts. So the only reason why we have them is because of this, one of the hosts from the podcast managed to take them. So what are these transcripts all about? So there are two of them. One of them that Glenn actually read the entirety of it, and this is why it's so amazing, is a 194-page transcript from an interview with Kegan Kline that took place on August, I believe, 19th, 2020. This is an interview between Kegan Kline and the unnamed police investigator. I think there were a few of them. And the other transcript is from 2021, December 9th, so over a year later. And this interview was conducted between Kegan Kline and Barbara McDonald, a woman who works for H&L, and I believe she works for the podcast H&L Down the Hill, the very popular podcast about Delphi Murders. So this is who this woman is, and she made an interview. And the funny thing is, you read the entirety of the first transcript, the interview with Kegan Kline from August 19th, 2020, when police officers were questioning Kegan Kline. I don't really know much about it. I know bits and pieces, but you are way more knowledgeable in terms of this transcript, so it's amazing because I'll ask you questions about this one, and obviously you will take us through this. And then I've read the entirety of the HNL interview with Kegan Kline that happened a year later. So I guess we could really just jump into the transcripts, and I feel like we could definitely start dissecting the first transcript that you read. And yeah, man, because you are the one that read it, like little research project on our notes, and you have like a good idea of what's happening in this transcript. So do you just have at it and I guess take us through it? You know what I mean? What is in this transcript? What's happening here?
Yeah, so this transcript appears to be an interview between like Kegan Kline and I think two detectives, and the first, let's say, the transcript's long, but it's long like a screenplay is long. It's like each page, you look at these pages. I mean, you could, if you squish them all together, you're like 50 pages of single space text. So it's not so much. It's pretty easy to skim. And the first 2/3 of it are them. Sorry, I gotta clear my throat.
It's okay, man. It's okay. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's a little too gravelly. Yeah, so the first 2/3 of it are really kind of it's a combination of like them getting acquainted and going over some facts and kind of trying to remind. I mean, some of it is really getting this guy to try to sign up for certain crimes. So the guy's been arrested and charged with some things. They've done a couple of evidence sweeps, which they some of this is detailing which property is actually his. And apparently they had missed some property the first time. So after they missed some property, he had actually gone back and, he has some reasons that he gives for why he says he did this. But one of the things he went back and did, which they caught him doing, was erasing account info that was on his phone. Now, you just remember this point, because they're not happy about that, but it's also an action that seems to imply something. But remember that there's stuff that he erased that was on his phone.
Really,
Yeah.
really quickly, just to get some, because I have questions. So
Yeah.
you're talking about the time. You're talking about 2017, just after the Delphi murders took place, when police raided his home the first time, and then 2 days later he was like, "Yo guys, you forgot this phone," so he gave them another phone, but that phone had already apps that were removed and search histories cleared. Are you referring to this particular?
Yeah. I believe that makes sense. That would coincide with what
All
they were describing in this part of the interview. So yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, there's this other phone, and they're talking about, and a lot of this stuff is, look, I mean, let's just say that this is a police interrogation. At some point, though, pretty early on, it's interesting. At some point early on, Kegan starts to get spooked by the whole thing, and he's like, "Well, I don't," because they start talking about the contents of like certain videos and pictures and things like that, and he starts to get kind of his feathers ruffled, and he feels like he's being kind of accused of a lot of things, and he is. I mean, they really are trying to pin him down, and it's worth mentioning, in this country, the police are allowed to lie to you during interrogations, as far as I know. That hasn't changed, and some of it is related to check to see if your story is true, right? To try to confuse you, to try to mix you up, and they're doing all these things. They're doing like the whole, like, from a very clinical point of view, it's interesting to watch the interrogation if you read it, because you kind of see the whole detective playbook. Like, you have the good cop, you have the bad cop, you have them kind of switching off sometimes, you have them doing certain things and asking certain questions to get him to sign up for like minimums. You know what I mean? If he was a salesperson,
Mm-hmm.
he would be this detective, he or she would be trying to get Kegan to like, agree to certain minimum values of things. That's why this car costs so much. Anyway, so
Right.
okay, so that I hope that makes sense. But yeah, so a lot of it is that, and a lot of it has nothing to do with Delphi, other than this kind of deductive process of getting him to have ownership of the phone. Now, what starts to become
Oh,
the yeah
sorry, just a
yeah
question,
no perfect
because
yeah
you read. So you're saying that most of this 194-page transcript is just about him trying to confess, like get more information about the phone that he got rid of,
well
like some information from the phone.
no let me clarify. So
Okay.
no, that was mentioned, but most of the content of the conversation until about page, I think it's like 145 or so,
Mm-hmm.
out of this thing, is really about the phones, multiple phones, so multiple devices, the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that was on the phones, the stuff that was said to girls in general, young lady, underage, minors, to minors, and to other people that were trafficking pictures, and also these kind of grooming conversations
Mm-hmm.
that included eventually, I believe it was Libby German.
Okay.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah,
really good information. Then we briefly spoke about this before recording, but I need to bring it up again for the audience members. So, would you say that? Because I don't know the timeline of when he got incarcerated or whatever. Would you say that Kegan Kline, at the time of this interview in 2020, August 19th, was he already incarcerated for quite a while?
yeah. I believe so. Either that or this was like the actual booking into it, because at one point at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and by the way, I think this is once again, this is part of the the playbook. This is like the interview's ended, you didn't get what you want, so you scare the prisoner. And he's like, he's like, they're saying, he said something like, oh, you better get comfortable. You're probably not going to see the outside for like 40 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
so would I be correct if I would assume that the reason for this interview, from the police perspective, was to get some sort of get things moving in his
Yeah.
in his
Yeah.
case, just in general, to speed things up, to get him to confess to something, like get something out of him.
I think this was supposed to be like the break the defenses open interview.
Oh,
So you already got dirt on this guy. You can already, that. So that's the interesting and kind of crazy part of the point of view. If you think that this guy had nothing to do with it, a lot of his actions don't make sense from, I guess, as we'll see in some parts of the interview. But yeah, 2/3 of this interview, I would say, if you were to say the purpose of the interview, I would say clearly was to try to solve the Delphi case, or to really,
so this is
yeah.
so this interview was not all about his previous CP accusations, but
That was the CP, well, all of that material, all that stuff that he had done, but it's, which that's the crime.
yeah.
That was being used as that. This is why we're looking at you, but that's not the only reason. We're also looking at you because, and this is where it gets into the rest of the interview, because they start, especially around that, I would say right, from like the middle of the interview towards like the page 145,
Mm-hmm.
is when they start talking about Anthony shots.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah,
I'm on page 145 on the YouTube channel for everyone who wants to watch. Yeah, we're already
yeah.
seeing Anthony shots being mentioned here. One last thing before you can go further, man. I wanted to mention that I did read the first maybe 30 pages of this transcript, and I think they specifically told Kegan in the beginning portions of the interview that he could have an attorney and he could completely refuse to talk, but he still spoke.
Yeah, and I started to go down that road. I'll finish that point. I guess I sort of
Okay.
went off on a
Sorry.
tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is me. By the way, I was gonna, originally I was thinking of doing, people say it sometimes, maybe they want to hear some of my crazy tangents. I was gonna do a tangent about this thing, but the first 2/3 of this thing is so vile, in terms of what it describes. It just is not fit. to show, and really it isn't really that interesting other than seeing the pattern of behavior of this guy, because when he's being asked about all these different devices that, okay, so it's not just this Anthony Shots account, which we'll get into. There's another account that it looks like he was using to correspond with people that had similar interests, and they were trading, photos and videos and things like that. So there's this whole pattern of behavior. There's a lot. He's been spending a lot of time doing this stuff at this point of his life, at least, that all of this is going on. And I'll say that, like, while in the interview, he kind of makes it sound like it was just a phase and he's just like pictures and he never intended to act on anything, and it was just harmless, and he's really deflecting from himself. But the detectives are not convinced, because there's a couple other things that are going to come up, and some of this is pretty shocking. And I think that it really made a case to me that if we were just to look at, like I said, it's just based on what we have here, just looking at one person as a suspect, he would make a pretty good one for a lot of reasons, but not including. So, okay, yeah. So we have this material, and this material is important. And I'll also mention, it's kind of scary as a parent to look at this, because it does seem like it's very common, unfortunately, for teenagers who are not, of course, no adult should ever be interacting with someone underage like this. Unfortunately, teenagers sometimes, and partly because they're really not acting as rational adults, will also seek attention, maybe inappropriately, especially inappropriately, from people, either people their own age or people older. That doesn't mean this is important, I think, to mention, because let's suppose someone were to find out that one of the two girls that was murdered had maybe acted in a way that was like trying to seek a relationship or something. Right? I would say it would be very, very highly unrealistic thinking. So it's just kind of emblematic that you're dealing with a child at some point, right? Because the person has not thought out the consequences to their life. It's just, it's a part where you got a lot of hormones going through you, and I mean, you're not. I've an 11-year-old right now, and you're not dealing with an entirely rational human being at that point. They know it. Everybody knows it. They should know it.
Of course.
So that's I think makes these crimes so egregious. Now, that being said, I think it's a really good warning for anybody, as a parent, to watch your kids and really try to pay attention to this and talk to them and make them understand that they should never let anybody blackmail them, no matter if they did get pictures from them, because what that person probably knows very well, that blackmailer, is that those pictures are actually, they are like an albatross around your neck. They are like kryptonite. They will destroy your life. That blackmailer is just blackmailing themselves. So it's unfortunate, because just recently a teenager actually killed himself over something like this. So when I see something like that, and I think of that. On a lighter note, I'll say that almost always, in a lot of these cases, these people, case in point, our suspect here, maybe, people are using fake pictures. I saw this one. I don't know if this is real or not, or staged. There's like a TikTok or something going around where, like, there's these two people on social media, and they're like, it's like a guy and a girl supposedly, and they're sending each other pictures like, oh, you look cute, send me a picture. Oh, hey, you want to FaceTime? And then they FaceTime, and it's two dudes, just like, and they just laugh. They're just like, ah. So of course it was never, it was just two people catfishing each other. But there's just so much of that. You know what I mean? I mean, do you personally, you're asking me to ask you, do you get a lot of like the fake bots and stuff that try to contact you through, Instagram and stuff like that? I get that crap all the time.
Sometimes,
it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Or Reddit or something. Yeah, I mean, it's not real. I mean, by the way, guys, I mean, I'd say specifically to guys, for anything in life, if it seems like it's very unlikely or quote unquote too good to be true, for whatever too good to be true is for you, it's probably a sign it is. Okay. So that being said,
don't be retarded, guys.
Don't be retarded. Don't let hormones make you do stupid things. This guy, case in point, I would say, though, it goes far beyond hormones with him, because it does clearly seem like he has a problem. So, okay, that's, I'm going into that whole thing because, as you get more into it, and you start to see
really quickly, just to like kind of get back to like
the lawyer thing.
No, the I guess the structure stuff thing. No, not the lawyer thing. I think we covered that. Just in general, I feel like we have like a certain amount of time for the podcast, and dude, let me just finish. I know that you've done like really nice sections and cutouts of like on our script. So for instance, I have this. as something that you've done. So basically, key quotes that you found.
Yeah.
So,
So
so
this
I
is,
just want you to
yeah.
like kind of go through the research and the interesting points that you found on the transcript. You know what
Perfect.
I
Yeah,
mean?
I'll just segue perfect into that. Okay, so basically, the whole thing is during this whole interview, Keegan is really pushing back. They keep trying to get him to sign up for stuff, and even though he was almost smart enough to ask for a lawyer, and then he changes his mind. He asks for a lawyer, then he changes his mind, and says, "No, I'll just sit here and I'll listen and not say anything." And then right away he says something. He's not as smart as he thinks he is. And let me just say to anybody for anything, this is just fair warning. I would give this advice, and I'm very anti-crime and anti-criminal and anti-everything. But you should always ask for a lawyer. You should never say anything in the police. If you're being accused of something, I think you're being accused, ask for a lawyer first. Never talk without a lawyer. Just good advice. This guy doesn't take that advice. He talks, and he spends a lot of time deflecting from himself. And I've never seen somebody sign up for because they keep asking him well, who's this person? Who's that person? He keeps on trying to give these reasons why other people like his dad or his roommate or God knows who, his drug dealer at some point. At some point, he admits to even helping drug dealers. He admits to buying drugs, which he wasn't going to do. At this interview, he admits to everything except the thing that they want him to admit to. And he keeps trying to dance around it and kind of
The Delphi thing.
I don't know. Yeah, the Delphi thing, the Delphi murders. Because here's why. Because he says he got all scared when he realized that they were accusing him because it was a girl. This happened in the town right next door, and he even it turns out the detectives point out, you kind of knew some of the people too. In fact, weren't you in fact talking to her with this Anthony Schatz account? And, he spends a lot of time trying to backpedal. This guy will not sign up to anything that these accounts did, despite them being the most glaring piece of evidence that he has not signed up for. You know what I mean? Or he's very, very grudging about it. It's a very mealy mouthed kind of well, yeah, it's mine, but he doesn't, he's trying to be his own lawyer. He's not doing a good job of it. So, but here's the part where they say why would you go back and erase these things and all this stuff? And he goes, well, I mean, yeah, it's two little kids getting killed in a town that's right by me, and that person's out here. So this is one of the things I wanted to point out. And maybe this will come back in another episode someday where someone else will point out some key quotes from earlier in the episode. But I mean, here's a key quote: is he keeps on saying, "That's two kids getting killed in a town that's right by me, and that's a person out here somewhere." But he didn't say it wasn't him. That's the person. I mean, everything he said was true, right? He didn't lie. Because he goes out of his. They say often that a lot of times, instead of just denying things, people that are actually guilty, if they're guilty, will kind of do everything they say they can to say a true thing, because it is actually hard to lie effectively. A lot of people are not good at it. Yeah.
Just to step in really quickly, yeah, I personally don't think that Kegan Kline is a bridge guy, because I feel like Kegan Kline, the bridge guy to me looked like he was someone in his late 30s to maybe even late 50s. Kegan was 20 something, but I do think that his father, there's a high chance that his father could be the BG, you know?
So yeah, let me address that, because that's a good point, and I don't want to bury the lead. So his father does come up in the conversation.
Okay.
Notably, I think he's the one, though, and I know you're going to point this out in another document.
Yeah.
He's the one that brings it up, not the detectives. The detectives, I think, kind of fumble around and are like, "Yeah, how much stuff do you share with your dad? Would you have showed him?" They use it more in wouldn't your dad be ashamed to see you looking at pictures of little girls and stuff like that, right? And they use it in that. And I see now there is a quote that now I wonder if I was taking it wrong, because there's a quote later on that talks about a potential second person that might have been involved, that had a violent past, that had tried to kill one of their own kids and assaulted their wife and things like that. And you have something, I think, later on that you're going to say that maybe changes my point of view. But to me, at one point, no joke, dude, at one point they say, so before this part that we talked about, but just to give you context, at one point they're like, you know what? Maybe you're not. We don't even think you're smart enough to have done this whole thing. And he was kind of like, I kind of laughed, because I was like, well, I mean, then, come on. That's like a Bugs Bunny cartoon, duck season, rabbit season, duck season. But like he did kind of like stumble a little bit and go, well, I don't know. But then it kind of sounded like they were trying to imply that this was it's called a group project, or at least two people were involved. And that was interesting. Yeah.
To get things straight, sometime during this transcript, the
Yeah.
investigators, they kind of start throwing. So who brings up this other person, and who is this other person? I'm lost.
Well, yeah, and that's the part I'm not clear about, because at one point they talk about how, because this is like near the end of the interview, at some point they're like, look, your phone connected to this, because they're, like I said, they're deductively moving through, where first they establish whose phones they were,
Yeah.
then they established what was on the phone, then they established in this interview, like this interview's a long interview, kind of, they established what kind of stuff was going on in these phones besides what was on the phone, like this grooming behavior, these chats and things that were going
Anthony
on.
Schott's account, right?
Anthony Schott's account, talking to specifically to Libby German, and then this other conversation that came up where apparently this is the part that really blew my mind, where I was like, hey, wait a minute. This Anthony Schott's account had talked to another girl.
Okay.
Apparently this other girl. So this is I think one of these thoughts that I'd outlined in the outline, where I was like, oh, this is interesting, because think about this. What if you're like a friend of Libby German and you've also been talking to this guy? Maybe you've even sent photos, right? So like, how embarrassing, like, but something, right? This person might, because this person said something, basically Anthony Schatz at one point says, well, I was supposed to meet with her, but she never showed up. And it was like, why would you, the detectives even ask him, why would you even say that? And he said, oh, I don't know. I would just said that. He always has some kind of weird, weak excuse. And he had a weird, weak excuse for that thing, which, we don't even think is worth regurgitating here. But I think what is important is that some other girl, some other minor, someone else who could be embarrassed, maybe has been embarrassed by this, said something. So that's interesting to me, because that means that there might be other girls that there may be other people. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Dude, let me step in here.
Yeah.
So from what I've researched, I believe, and I could be wrong here, but I believe the reason why Kegan Kline's home got raided in February 25th, just 12 days after the Delphi murders taken place, because I think one of Liberty's friends came forward to law enforcement and said that Liberty may have been, or was certainly, contacting an Instagram account named Anthony Schatz. And it's good that you've done this research into the transcript. I've actually read through page number 145 as you were describing the contents in depth, and I can see that this is probably what you are referring to, because just really quickly, just to read out what we have here, the investigator says, so she gives an address to Anthony Schatz, and I believe she, in this particular spot, is no longer Liberty. It's that other friend.
Right.
Yeah, and then because she's coming home after school and she wants to hook up because parents are not home after school for a couple of hours, some conversations, whatever. And then the questioner is, again, the girl associated with the redacted person gets off the school bus, and there's a guy with a ski mask peering in her bedroom window. And then Anthony, I guess, is like, okay, so you're trying to say that's me or something? And then the investigator, no, I'm not saying it's you. I'm just saying there's another coincidence that we have a girl talking to Anthony Schott's account. Then she gives an address to Anthony Schott's because she wants to hook up with him. See, I don't even remember her ever giving me an address. So it's like, it's weird, but I guess from this page number 145 we can get that Anthony Schatz was in contact with another friend of Liberty German, another underage girl who invited Anthony Schatz to come over to her home, but but then she reported some creepy guy peeking through her bedroom windows, because that was presumably, well, that was certainly the person behind the Anthony Shots account who just showed up to the place. So we know that Anthony Shots account was targeting girls in Delphi. That's a fact at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean that, and then couple that with what is that saying about the person's behavior? I mean, if that's Kegan,
Kegan.
that's
Yeah.
sorry, Kegan. Yeah, it's his friggin' name.
Yeah.
Friggin', you should get a normal name. That was the beginning and the end. Yeah. So
Yeah.
he goes. All right. So I mean I shouldn't laugh because it's scary because it's a whole other stage. So like that peeping Tom thing. I mean, first of all, it's one of those classic like sex offender cues, and sometimes serial killers. Some of the serial killers who are also sex offenders sometimes do that same behavior. So it's not innocuous like he was just describing to the detectives, because the detectives is like, I'm just collecting pictures, but no, all of a sudden you're going to go meet them, and the thing is, he doesn't.
But
Yeah.
dude, okay, dude, hold your horses, dude. I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think Kegan was the peeping Tom that was peeping on Liberty German's other friend, or was it someone else?
I think mostly yes. I mean, here's the thing.
Oh, really?
I'm split. I'm torn because on one hand, I mean, to look at him now, I mean, he makes Private Pile and Full Metal Jacket look like, you know, the bad guy in Rocky IV. I mean, he's just a big mess.
Is there a chance that his father was doing this?
So, and well, the thing was, and that was the other thing of the interview was he kept saying stuff. He was the only person, actually. Even though he would mention, oh, well, this person had access to my phone or that person, because it was like the typical, like, oh, multiple people in the household. It's kind of a common defense, I think, ploy for that kind of crime. But then he would say some stuff that was kind of raunchy about his dad, like, you know, like this 13-year-old girl would send me a picture, and then he'd say, oh, let me see her too, and like all this, and I was like, I don't know if he's saying it, but that to me, it sounded like he was lying to the investigators. I bet.
About what?
It sounds like maybe you know what I mean, because they didn't seem that interested in that theory.
About he was lying about what?
Yeah, well, they didn't seem interested in his "my dad's a pervert and maybe he did it" kind of theory. They didn't push it very hard, or if they did, he would kind of crumble the same way when he tried to throw one of his friends under the bus. And then all of a sudden he felt bad. He's like, oh, no. I mean, that guy is, yeah.
So Kegan accused his father in the interview, or the interviewers?
Well, he said stuff. Yeah, I mean, I would say it was close enough that he accused his dad. He accused his dad, at least, of having some kind of semi-perverted interest in some of his materials. And I think he said things that would seem to lead investigators in a way like he was trying to casually lead away from himself. I don't know if he thought. I don't know if people, when they do that, they think that it's like a trail of crumbs they're going to lead away from themselves, and it ends nowhere, and they're just going to know they're lost. They're disoriented. I don't know where was my case. Who was the last person? I can't remember. I don't know why they thought that would work, but that's what it almost seemed like. It seemed like a very I don't know, weak attempt to do it. But I don't want to. I don't want to be draggle things out too much because I know we're trying to stay on pace. But yeah, 145 and 146 were specifically interesting because the in exchange, like you said, was very revealing. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I? Because I kind of also read it just now as well. The 46. So let me just quickly point out a few interesting things from page 146. Is that so this thing happens, right? Like the whole peeping Tom situation happens, whatever. Anthony Shots, well, Kegan Kline says that's crazy, and investigators like, hang on. On top of that, you searched about someone on February 19th. On top of that, you searched about someone. So this redacted person is that underage girl. That underage girl friend of Liberty German who had that encounter with a creepo with a ski mask who was peeking into her bedroom window. So I think what this, if I understand this correctly, Kegan Kline apparently searched about her just days after to see if anything came up, right? And then he says, "What do you mean I searched?" And then they go, "The day before that happened, your phone shows that you searched the family." So I think this is the Peeping Tom victim family. "What do you mean?" He replies, "I'm telling you, your phone searched." And then he's like on Facebook or something. And then they're like, uh-huh. Oh, so he looked. Oh, so he checked them out on Facebook. And then,
This,
oh
this,
yeah,
this is, by the way, this is why the interview is so much easier to read than to listen to, because so much of it is him just like playing dumb, like on Facebook or something. Yeah, dude, with 3 phones, who was doing 3 phones at once. Facebook, you used it before? Like, I
yeah.
mean, you know what I mean? The guy's just playing stupid. Like, it must have been frustrating, but I guess that's what they do, right? They troll each other, and I guess that's his form of
Yeah,
resistance.
and then they're like, right, okay, another coincidence, and then the guy's like, yeah, I see what you're trying to put together, but I swear to God, I was not looking in someone's effing. What did we didn't say that, and then will you stop? You're implying that I, God, and then we're trying. Okay, so they're implying. Okay, so 146 of the transcript, the investigators are implying that Kegan, or at least Kegan assumes that the investigators are implying that he was behind the accident with one of Liberty German's friends who was peeped upon when a catfishing situation happened in respect to the Anthony Shots account. So, I mean, this would kind of tightly connect Anthony Shots to, yeah, and I guess this is why police came out with Anthony Shots information in the first place, because initially there was just this vague piece of information that Anthony Shots account was contacting underage girls in the Indiana state or something like that, but there was no actual connection. And I think this is the connection. I think this is what actually connected Anthony Schatz in particular to the Delphi case, because Anthony Schatz apparently had contact with Liberty and with Liberty's friends, and one of the Liberty's friends had a very bad experience with the person behind Anthony Schatz's accounts. Would I be correct to assume this, man?
Yeah, I'd say that's so. And you know, I think it's, like I said, this, I think this person turned out to be pretty key, not just to the investigation, but I mean, it's a pretty interesting
Yeah.
insight because you know, by the way, so let's suppose he goes to meet one of these people, which is already, it's a stupid idea for a lot of reasons.
But which people, dude? Which people?
So, well, these underage girls, so
Which one?
shots, so any of them. He goes to meet any of them. It's already screwed up. It's already like legally, morally wrong. It's wrong from the point of view of the exploited child, because it's not the person that she thinks she's talking to. It's this, well, I think it's the fat mess Kegan. I don't think, or his dad. Either way, it's not this like cute dude that might be their age or not their age, but who's, you know, somehow somewhere near it and way more attractive. Like, by the way, the poor guy that keeps getting used in this thing. So his photo keeps being shown because they're trying to find out if there's other victims, and so they can get more information. But meanwhile, the poor guy, it was some guy whose photo was stolen. Of course, he had nothing to do with this. He was not. You know, it's a totally
Yeah,
different story.
I feel like
Yeah,
we've already covered that. But like staying back on course, man. I see that you
yeah, but
have next page is 158. Because dude, I want to get through this, man. I don't want to.
yeah, I guess I just let me ask you, what did you think was going to happen? I mean, what would he think would happen if he showed up and they're like, yeah, you're not Anthony Shots.
Well, I
Like,
think
you know, the
the
fact that he showed up is weird. That's weird to me. Like, it bothers me a lot. I don't know if it bothers me too much, but it bothers me that he went that first time. Even if he didn't do Delphi, it bothers me he did the first one, because already that's kind of setting up for something.
yeah.
It doesn't seem innocent to me.
Well,
Well, none of it's innocent, but yeah.
Whoever was behind the Anthony Shots account, and could very well be Kegan Kline, but like Kegan said that there were multiple people that could have accessed that account. So whoever was behind it, I feel like had some sort of devious intentions. Definitely no hookup was gonna take place. I feel like it's either gonna be like spying on them or potentially murdering them. So I feel like maybe the case with Liberty's friend was just to spy on them and be a creep. But with Liberty German, if it was in fact a setup, then I feel like it was to murder them or to spy on them. But it ended up being a murder. You know what I mean? Maybe a murder was planned for the Liberty German meetup situation because the destination was very remote at the end of the Monon High Bridge Trail. Like it's a perfect place to kill someone, and then how Bridge Guy approached them and waved the gun at them and was like, "Yo, down the hill." I feel like at that point, yeah, that person knew what they were going to do to the two girls. So I think it was either to be a creep or to murder them. That there wasn't an actually, the intentions were to kill kids, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like there was some kind of specific agenda. I just I guess I'll talk about it more later. But yeah, just staying on course. Yeah, so that was one of the first major things for the transcript where I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so big. Was there anything else you want to highlight from that? I think I had a couple other
150,
places.
yeah, you have
Yeah.
158 and 159, something about DNA lookups, right?
Oh yeah. So so then he's on this trip. I think in Vegas. I think during
Yeah.
the initial, I guess,
He lived
murder
in Vegas.
investigation.
I believe he lived in Vegas. He moved out in Vegas. Actually, he operated a weed, some sort of a weed business.
So he's there, so this is what I'm confused about because in the intro or in the other transcript, the first part of the transcript,
Yeah.
they talk about how he moved around a bit. Like he said at one point he left Vegas because he couldn't afford it anymore. Um, he had a girlfriend at one point, then he didn't have a girlfriend. That was the whole like he was living with somebody and maybe someone else living in the house could access his phone. One of many reasons that the investigators all slapped down. The investigators weren't, at least according to the interview. Who knows what they really think? In the interview to him, they were slapping down all of his excuses. They were like, "No, it's you. No, it's you. No, the phone followed you around. They did all this behavior wherever you were. It's you. It's you. It's you. It's you. Your dad wasn't there. Your dad wasn't there. Your roommate wasn't there. Your roommate wasn't there. You were there. You were there. You were there. You were there." So yeah, I mean that's the thing that's interesting is yeah when he's like he's doing DNA searching all of a sudden. He's worried about DNA evidence. Right after the murders. Why is he so murdered? Why is he so interested in this? This guy was never so interested in DNA evidence until right after the murder of somebody that he still won't admit to having conversations with. He claims he doesn't remember. Even though they all know it's Anthony Shots, he knows he was Anthony Shots. He admitted to being Anthony Shots. He claims in the entire interview that he never remembers having a conversation. Or when he does, he'll remember and then he'll lie about it again and say, "Oh well, I don't really remember that. You guys said I said that last time," or
Well, I think the
that was what
play,
it was. Yeah,
the play there from the defense standpoint is that he discloses information that other people had access to the account, and if he doesn't remember having conversations with a particular victim, then he kind of insinuates that another holder of the logins to the Anthony Shots accounts was the one having the conversation. Like so I see why he says that. I see because like if he says that there were more people that had access to the account, then he would say, well, I didn't contact this girl, someone else from the many people who had the contacts. Maybe his whole play is that, okay, so I gave this account to someone, but I don't remember to whom, and then they could have given that account to an n amount of potential creeps. So who knows who's contacting who? This account got thrown around. You know what I mean?
yeah. That's probably also why he did. Part of the reason why he did a search about servers in one of the other things. So you
Servers?
mentioned, yeah, he did a server search. So remember I mentioned that phone that he had erased a bunch of like
Yes.
accounts on.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Right around the time he searched about servers, what's stored on servers and what's stored on phones. So that's, by the way, one thing that this transcript also kind of shows us is where some of the holes are in the investigation, because you can kind of see the way the detectives talk about things and the questions they ask. Some of the questions they know the answers to. Some of the questions are meant to pin somebody down and get them to admit something. Some of the questions, I think, like case in point, there's missing material. So there's stuff that was gotten and there's stuff that wasn't gotten. The problem with, I think, the like shared account, as I understand it, the way the detectives depicted it, the shared account theory falls apart because too much activity is going on in it, and it's all activity going on in his phones, and it doesn't seem to match activity that, like, I don't know. I mean, his dad's like, what, in his 50s or something? Is his dad really gonna like spend all day on I mean, do you know anybody in their 50s that spends all day on like a smartphone? Like, I don't.
Nah.
Yeah, it's not. You know what I mean? It's not really like a 50s. Sorry, it's not really a 50s person kind. It's not even a 40s thing, barely. It's kind of like a millennial or
So
younger.
so 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 going back to DNA lookups, man. What can we take from one pages 158 and 159, man?
Yeah, I mean, he seems like super nervous, right? About the DNA stuff, and then, like, he he says he's just he just has all this stuff where he's like, what was one of the messages he'd say, like, I had nothing to do with that. I know she's dead, and I would feel something. I literally, it just, I don't know. It was a lot of like BS stuff, and then he was talking about other things. That's one of the other things guilty people do often, is they try to kind of take the subject down tangents.
Yeah.
I'm not lying though.
A
And I
Lamborghini.
know,
Is
I know,
this?
I do a lot of tangents. Yeah, I mean, maybe that stuff, the DNA stuff, like the DNA stuff is pretty interesting to me. Like he failed the polygraph about that. He had he had just done a lot of like panicking about DNA, and it's interesting
Oh,
because
look, dude.
yeah,
Yeah, because we have to tell this to
yeah,
the audience members that are just listening to this. So one of the things that the investigators asked Kegan during the interviews, this part right here, I'm gonna read it. Let me ask you why you, after you failed the polygraph about knowing about Delphi investigation, come home, delete your Snapchat and your Instagram, which you used to communicate with Libby, and then you searched, how long does DNA last? Why would you do that? And his answer is, I have no clue. I don't know. Because they DNA tested me. And the investigator is like, right. And then he's like, so they obviously have DNA on that body, because why else would they DNA test me? And then the investigators are like, so why would you worry about your DNA being on that body? And he's like, I wouldn't. And they're like, then why'd you search? And he's like, common question. That's just a common thing to freak out about, like, why, you know what I mean? And they're like, no, I don't, because you're giving DNA. And then he's like, right, so you obviously know I didn't do it. And then something, but you're starting to, yeah, and then whatever this is. But then yeah, so apparently he searched about DNA, and yeah, DNA lookup. So this is what you mean, that he was actually looking up about DNA tests right after he failed his polygraph test. I believe back in 2017 this was happening. The initial polygraph test was, I believe, back in 2017, like right after the murders. He was polygraphed. He failed the polygraph, but then he looked up DNA results afterwards, right?
yeah. So which, and maybe that was the point of the polygraph, right? Maybe the polygraph was part of the theater, because it's not admissible, and I always say Grande doesn't like it, but maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter. It's just that we've seen kind of other things in the news. Well, somebody will do something to get someone else to do something. Um, Maybe that was the point of the polygraph. So yeah, and some of this other stuff I have marked down here.
Page
I probably
number
wouldn't.
170 is next up.
170. Yeah, it was there was a case where, like, he kept on like he kept on saying he had such bad memory, and do you remember, he was like, do you even know what you were doing like a week ago? Where were you Tuesday night? And then he's trying to like flip it on the detectives because they keep trying to ask him what he did a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and he says he doesn't remember, and and they're like, hey, this other thing from 2017 that we were just talking about, because they asked him a bunch of questions. They're like, oh yeah, that was 3 years ago. How come you remember so much? And he's like, well, it's my friend, or this, it was something kind of other thing. But there, it was just catching him, and it's probably not worth um
Yeah.
focusing too much on. How about
181. 181 you have as next. 181.
yeah, I had one other quote I think before that, which was from
Okay.
he was looking up the case later. I don't know. Yeah, there was it's okay. I'll stick a pin in the other thing. I don't want to confuse it. But 181, I think. I can't remember. There was something specific on 181. Let me look on your page real quick. And then 189 was just about servers, so we can already probably skip that unless you want to look at the server conversation. But
Of course.
yeah, like they're talking about
181 is about
like they're giving this 181. They're giving this whole
I can read it out.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah,
just read it out.
perfect.
It's really small. So
Yeah.
181, it starts out with the question, but he tells you he doesn't remember. So wait, who doesn't remember? Anyways, let's just go through it. He doesn't remember,
Yeah.
and then Kegan is like, so where's any of the evidence that you have? And the investigation is like just and inaudible. Kegan is like,
That, yeah.
just not evidence. That's me talking to the that's not evidence of me killing anyone. I can't even remember a time I've been to Delphi.
Yeah, so that was what it was. That part, it was like, it's like he starts to lie. He starts to lie. I never, oh, I don't know if he's lying. If he was lying, he's starting to lie. And then all of a sudden he says, well, I can't remember a time I've been to Delphi. So that means potentially if someone finds, oh no, look, here it is. You were in Delphi, it got you on camera. Oh, well, I didn't remember, right? That way you didn't lie. I can't remember. It's kind of a sort of a better lie. Yeah. Or he thinks it is. Yeah. So it was a lot of stuff where, yeah, I mean, there's the evidence conversation. I don't want to drag it out too much. I mean,
But this is crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, let me read what happens later on in page number 181. The investigation is like right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
From 15, right? Maybe like he says, because I mean, they're basically laying out. They're like, this is why we're talking to you, dude. Like this whole deck of cards of things that you did.
Yeah, so the investigation is like right before she died, I assume, talking about Liberty. So they say right before she died, and we have witness statements that talk to Anthony Schatz that said they were talking about meeting up, even to the point so far that she said Anthony Schatz told her when they said, oh my god, what happened? Hey, I was supposed to meet her, but she didn't show up. That's evident. So essentially what this means is that I believe Liberty German's friends, yeah, so okay, I think I have this. I think I have this. So Liberty German's friends who were also contacting Anthony Schatz at the time when Delphi Murders happened, right after the murders happened, they were still contacting with Anthony Schatz, and Anthony Schatz told one of Liberty's friends that, oh, I was supposed to meet up with Liberty, but she never showed up. So one of the friends told police this. So one of Liberty's friends told police that Anthony Schatz told her that he was supposed to meet up with Liberty, but she never showed up. And this is post-murders. So I think this was Anthony Schatz saying, oh my god, she's dead. I was supposed to meet her, but she never showed up. But how sad, she's now dead.
Which, by the way, they also allege that the Anthony Schatz count, it says it in there, I should have kept which page, that it kept sending messages to Libby after she was dead, knowing she was dead. That was like an interesting, yeah. Okay.
Well, I read it as you were saying as well, other things.
Yeah.
So I read it that, yeah, apparently Anthony Schott's accounts was sending messages to Liberty German's Snapchat, even when it was obvious that she was dead. At least it would seem that it was obvious because it was national news, and I think you would know. Um,
Yeah.
and now going back to that last page number 189, something about the servers. Let me just read it out. So the investigation is: you told investigators you did. Anthony shot. Kegan is like, okay, I don't though. I don't remember that now. Why would you? They ask. He says, I don't remember even when I told them. I don't remember what I did last week. I don't. The investigation asks, but do you see how you're picking and choosing things you remember? And then he's like, no, I wish you would see from my point of view, the thing has nothing to do with me remembering anything. And then investigation's like, no, I'm not talking about that. I mean, you sat here and said that the woman that interviewed with you was very motherly. You remember that she was, and he's like, I do remember uh, her being really nice. Then they ask him, you remember that she told you that you need to stop, and that you remember you told her you have a problem? So you remember all these things, but then you just sit here and tell me when I don't remember any of that. But that's, and then he's like, I never said that. I don't remember about that lady, the interview. She was part of the intro. Okay, but this is servers. This is connecting, searching about server. Oh, this may be next page, so 190 or something like that. Uh, Anyways, I don't really see the servers in here. Like, what's with the servers? Just to
Was
finish
it
off.
191? Yeah, it was at 191. But he did search it, so that was just the part I was talking about where
Okay.
he erased a bunch of stuff, and he was looking up like, well, what's on servers and what isn't, and what's local to the phone. So presumably, if you could erase a
Oh,
phone,
so
and it
just
was always
basically he was looking for more information how to
hide stuff.
hide
Yeah.
stuff. Okay, cool. So I think, I think we went through this. I feel like, since this is a public document at this point, you can find it pretty easily. I feel like we could leave it here. I quickly want to, because we still have to bring up the other document, if you know what I mean, and talk about unless there's anything you would like to conclude with for that first document that we just went through, you know?
Nope, I'm good.
Nah, man, but don't feel like we're like rushing through this or anything like that. But
No. I think we definitely went through it. Anything else I have to say, I'll incorporate it at the end. But yeah, I
awesome,
think we're good.
perfect, man. Okay, so the next one that I looked into was another leaked document. This one, was leaked by Murder Sheet Podcast as well. And it's basically just an interview between Barbara McDonald, who works for HLN, the news or media network or whatever, and she had an interview with Kegan Kline, presumably right after the news came out that ISP, Indiana State Police, are looking for information in respect to the Anthony Shots account. So also the information came out that Kegan Kline was behind the Anthony Shots account. So people from the HLN's news or media station, they went and talked to Kegan Kline, as he was already in prison for other CP charges. Let's remember that. So it's just an interview. It's in total it's 25 pages, and I briefly went over these pages with Glenn before we recorded the show, and I do have a few pages that are very diabolical or like very like telling. So just to give context, because I'm not going to read the entirety of it. Once again, it's a public document. You could go on Reddit and easily find these things for yourself, guys. But the general idea of this particular document was, just an interview with Kegan Kline, and strictly asking him about potential Delphi connection. Kegan Kline denies having any involvement in connection to the Delphi Murders case, but there are a few quotes from this transcript that I found very interesting. So the first one happens on page number 4. Let me just let me just read the entirety of page number 4 for a better context. So Barbara McDonald asks, yeah, it's been cutting out, and he says sorry, cutting out as in like the booth that they were talking through in the prison. It was like cutting out or whatever. And then, oh, you're fine. And then Kegan is like, and then Barbara is like, so do you remember the night of the 13th, the night that the girls went missing? Do you remember communicating with Kelsey German? He's like, no, I don't. She's like, he's anybody else, oh sorry, has anybody else had access to this Anthony Shots login? And he's like, I mean, I lived with my dad, but I don't know. And she's like, do you think your dad could have been accessing that profile? He's like, yeah, I do. She's like, do you think that your dad could be involved? He's like, no. She's like, what happened to Abby and Libby? Oh, like involved with what happened with Abby and Libby. And he's like, no, because I was with him that day. And she's like, so you were both at home in Peru, Indiana? He's like, yeah, I lived with him. She's like, okay. And he's like, yeah. And then she's like, so you know that he didn't have anything to do with the murders? And he's like, yeah, right. So essentially, this is the first interesting point where I'll just mark this down for the audience members. Kegan Kline says, when the lady asks him, do you think your dad could have been accessing that profile, Anthony Shots profile? He says, yeah, I do. So this is very telling. Now let's jump to page number 10, where there were more interesting things happening. So page number 10, let me read out page number 10 for everyone. And leading up to page number 10, they're pretty much just talking about how he's no longer speaking to his father, Tony Kline. And the woman asks, and so he has been sort of ghosting you then? And he's like, yep, since, and then he says, the last 2 weeks, since the raids on his house. And then she's like, does that sound like he's scared? And then he's like, I would think, because I have no reason why he wouldn't talk to me. You know what I mean? I'm his only child. I mean, we had a great relationship. And then this is going to be crazy. Barbara asks him, do you think he's the type of person who could have killed these girls? And then he says, and this is crazy, and then he says, I don't think so, because I was with him. You know what I mean? So I know it wasn't him, but in his past, he's beaten up his ex-wife. I mean, he's held guns to us as when we were kids, you know what I mean? Like, he's not really a great person, you know what I mean? So, I don't know, just...
I don't know what he means. What does he mean? They held guns to him, to them as kids.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Barbara asks him, so is he the type of person who could have done it? And he's like, nah, because he was with me, so I don't think so. But he did do some wild stuff.
He says they have a great relationship right now. It's like in the same breath, and then he's like right off to like throwing one under the bus. And yeah, I mean, there's some pretty vile stuff that really mirrors or even expands upon the strange relationship, and even about them maybe looking into going to brothel together. I mean, it sounds like it might be a little bit of broken family.
Yeah, totally.
Some sadness there.
A few other pages before I finish off this. Page number 12 had some interesting information. Let me just read it out. So Barbara says, so tell me about the 13th. What were you guys doing all day? What you know for sure he was with you the whole day? He says, well, he doesn't work on Monday, Saturday, and Monday or Sunday, and Mondays, this was bizarre, but and Mondays, so we would always just hang out at the house go to my grandparents. But I remember that day we watched a wrestling pay-per-view that night, and he was at my grandparents with me around 5 and 6, and then the rest of the night. But he usually sleeps, because he works third shift. And Barbara's like, okay. And then he's like, he normally sleeps until about 1 or 2, and then we wake up, get lunch, stuff like that. And then Barbara's like, okay. And that he was with you from 1 or 2 Monday the 13th, because let's remember the murders took place around like 3-ish p.m. So, like, do you know that? And then Barbara asks him, do you know if he was with you at 1 or 2? And he's like, right. And then Barbara's like, throughout the evening? And then he's like, right, yeah. And then Barbara's like, so how do you reconcile this in your head, this focus on you, and like the police is focusing on him? And then he's like, I have no clue. I've asked them. I'm like, what else do you want me to do? You know what I mean? And it's like they're harassing me. They will not stop. It's like I've done everything they want. They've went through all my phones. They know everything about me. They talk to people that I know, and whatever, and it will not stop. But I think it's mainly because why I highlighted this thing, because oh yeah, I highlighted this thing because uh, this page, because Kegan said he was at my grandparents with me around 5 and 6. So 5 and 6, right? And let's remember 5 and 6, and let's quickly jump to the official timeline. I think I have it here. This is the official timeline. Let's go to the day of the murders. Let's go back a bit. Let's go back to the day of the murders. The murders, right? Liberty took a video which shows a man. Okay, so the bridge guy video happened sometime after 2:07, and so let's remember 2:07 p.m. And in the transcript, he says he was with me around 5 and 6. So he doesn't say at any time in this transcript, or at least up front, that, Tony Kline, his father, was accounted for at 2:07 when Bridge Guy was, starting his murder spree. He only says that he was accounted for 5 or 6, so 3 hours later. That's plenty of time for Bridge Guy to kill the girls and get back to Peru, which was like an hour's drive away or something like that. So that's plenty of time, to be honest. So that was interesting. And then the last one is page 21. It's going to be a very interesting quote. Last quote, I'm not going to read the entirety of it because it's pretty short. It's this right here in page number 21. This was very, very crazy. So Barbara asks, and I mean, I know you say that he was with you that day, but would your father be capable of going out and walking this bridge and killing 2 girls? Would he physically be capable of doing that? And he said, yeah, he hunts and he's got to pull out deer. So I mean, yeah, I would think he would be capable of doing it, but yeah. And then she says, but he was with you. And he's like, yeah. So once again, kind of very interesting responses. Like he says that his father didn't do it, but he always follows up with, but he's a creepy ass guy, and I don't know. So that's that these are the transcripts, guys. I hope this made sense. These are the 2 transcripts. Let me get some water, dude, and yeah, like overall, what do you make of the Kegan Kline connection? I guess we can jump to our concluding thoughts. Like now that we have these 2 transcripts, how has your perception of this case changed?
I mean, it's interesting because the slant of the second transcript seems to try to push a narrative and timing around the father doing stuff and accessing the account. And I mean, I'll fully admit that going into tonight and how I've been talking tonight, I have a bias towards at least one specific person seemingly being guilty, and whether they were helped by someone else.
So who's that person, dude? Let us know.
Yeah, so Kegan. I mean, I think it's all. I mean, the detectives, at least in that one interview, and admittedly, they may just be doing that to try to get him to flip on somebody else.
By the way, dude, if
Yeah.
you could check the shared screen, you should be able to see. Have you seen this? This is an amazing.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, look. For everyone who's listening to this, we're looking at the comparison where the because let's remember there were two sketches, old man sketch and the young guy sketch. So the old man sketch is compared to Tony Kline, Kegan's father, and the young man sketch is compared to Kegan Kline himself, and they look like they match up. Like especially like old guy
Yeah.
sketch, dude. Look at old guy sketch in the middle, and Kegan's father, Tony Kline. Like it's even the same beard, man. Like what else do you need? Like yo, like, and this guy was apparently seen on the trail, as far as I understood, and the way I kind of assumed. And maybe this was that squirrely Jim Clemente. I don't trust that guy. Jim Clemente, I feel like is a bit squirrely because I think Jim Clemente, he said that this old guy was apparently cleared. So, but that's just squirrely ass Jim Clemente. You can never trust that squirrely weasel. So, maybe it's just Jim Clemente messing up right there. So maybe it was actually, old guy sketch. Maybe is actually Tony Kline.
Yeah. I mean, certainly this photo tells a pretty good story.
Yeah, and then look,
It
young
is
guy sketch,
compelling. Yeah.
and the young guy
Yeah.
sketch looks okay. Well, I will say that young guy sketch doesn't have the chubby cheeks of Kegan Kline. Like Kegan's Kline's cheeks are like way more chubby. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, though, admittedly, the drawing is of somebody who could kind of flex and weight. Like they didn't draw a skinny person per se. They
Yes,
drew kind of somebody that had like kind of
young.
a husky frame. Yeah, young and definitely Kegan looks like he probably was thinner.
And what do you make of
And
this
yeah.
comparison? We're looking at Kegan. We're looking at Tony Kline next to a Ferrari, just standing there, and we see Bridge Guy. Do you see similarities between the two?
Yeah, it's kind of I mean a lot about the posture to me.
Weight
Looks like.
looks
How about you?
identical. Weight
Yeah.
looks identical. Because
Yeah.
let me whip out some more pictures for comparison. You know, we always like to look at pictures on this podcast. So let me whip out something about Kegan Kline. Let me whip out some pictures from Kegan Kline. Like, um, yeah, Kegan Kline. I mean, I don't know if he looked like. Cause okay, like to me, Kegan, if because I don't know, maybe Kegan Kline was like not this fat at the time of Delphi Murders, because I think this is from 3 years later. But to me, this guy right here, Kegan Kline from 2020, is way too fat to be BG. Okay, to be bridge guy. Like to me, Kegan Kline looks way too fat. At least 3 years later, he got way too fat to be BG.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Oh,
yeah.
dude, and to give your take, because I got the numbers. Kegan Kline said that he was around 300 pounds during the time of the murders, and he's 5'11". Now I ask you, does and you know we don't know if that's a fact or not, but just in general, does this look like a
Nah.
5'11", 300 pounder?
Nah, not even close. No, that's like a 5'11", maybe 200 pounder.
See, but not 300
Yeah.
pounder. That's not the
Yeah, no, no,
300.
no.
See,
Yeah.
so once again, but obviously we can only
Yeah.
take his word for it. But as I've said, like he
It's,
looks, this guy looks, bridge guy looks too old and and not as fat.
It's so weird because I keep on trying to. And how old is his father again?
In his
Apologize for asking you
50s.
that.
In his 50s. I
50s.
don't really know.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
it's weird because it's like, I mean, you know, like once again, I'm gonna project, right? I'm gonna be like, I'm in my mid 40s, starting to kind of calm down. Let's say, you know,
But
in a lot of ways, you know, live some life, and I'm like, gosh, would I really be out like doing? I mean, this is almost like this is hunting humans kind of stuff, right? And there's like, I guess presumably a let's face it, a sexual element, right? Because we're
yes.
talking about, you know, so there's this whole combination of things that are attractive to, well, psychotic people or psychopathic people, attractive to people that are like sexual offenders, looking for power. And then, you know, there's like a hunting thing. Like hunting seems to be attractive in general for like maybe you know, animals, right? I mean, animals like hunting in general a lot of times because it's how we all ate.
Yeah.
So there's something about it that maybe attracts. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of not kind of. It's a really weird father-son activity, but it's not unheard of. I mean, even if you look up Dr. Grande, Dr. Grande's got cases he's done so many, where he's covered people that were like, you know, mother-daughter or father-son, let's say murderers or offenders or things like that.
And let's really quickly listen into sorry, to Bridge Guys' audio. Like, does this look like 25-year-old audio? Let's just listen in. Actually, when I listen to it, the audio kind of now seems a little bit deceiving. I will stay still. It looks like an old person's audio, but for some reason in the back of my head, I kind of had a picture of this audio sounding way older. I mean, it's the phone is also like fairly you know, not the best quality, I think, audio capture right there. So who knows, right? The audio, I guess I don't want to play into the audio, but clearly from the way this dude is walking, the way he's like acting, like, to me, this dude, give me a second, dude, this dude is not this dude. This picture is Kegan Kline 2016. So this is even sometime pre 2016. I'm not really quite sure exactly when this picture was taken, but to me, like, this guy in the video is not this guy Kegan Kline. Like, I just don't see it. Like, this guy, look, Kegan Kline's always wearing snapback hats, like trying to look cool, and Bridge Guy looks like he gave up on like fashion sense, like back in the 90s or something.
Yeah, it's like real practical, kind of like you said, old timey or older man wear.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, yeah, it doesn't, just the way he holds himself. I mean, you know, like an older man, if you've lived that long, you might have a little more confidence, or at least you're not going to be as embarrassed about stuff because it's already happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I'm so far I'm with you. I mean, I can't, even though it undermines potentially what I've been arguing.
No, that's the thing.
It doesn't undermine it, but to me, it undermines the part where the detectives are like, yeah, it probably isn't your dad. Because I was going along with them on that, and now I look at this other stuff and I'm like, well, I don't know, like this one piece of evidence. I guess the question is this piece of evidence? Well, I at the end of the day, I think you're going to find it actually does agree with one of the things that I think could have happened in this case. So I shouldn't. Yeah. We're not at loggerheads.
Of course.
It's just I'm still trying to like take it in a little bit.
Yeah, no, of course, and I understand completely, man. So, okay, so just in retrospect, what we talked about today is the information that we now have, thanks to these new transcripts, is that there is an actual connection between Anthony Schott's account and the Delphi Murders case. The connection is that the account had conversations with Liberty German. So Liberty German was getting catfished. We know that for a fact. And apparently, Anthony Schatz's account was in contact with Liberty German on the same day that she got murdered. I don't know if we have some sort of a conversation between them. Is this a public information or anything like that? If police has this information, but I think there is a high chance that Liberty German went to the Monenhai Bridge Trail and walked over the bridge in order to meet up with Anthony Schatz. I think this is very likely, and I think that the killer is a person behind the Anthony Shots account. I don't know if it's Kegan, if it's his father, I don't know who it was, but I strongly now suspect that the killer is someone who was using Anthony Shots account. So that's just my thoughts. That's where I'm gonna leave it at, because I don't want to speculate too much, because we don't know anything here, and we already made like very bad guesses in the past on the show regarding to this case. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. The new information now leads me to suspect that whomever was using Anthony Shots account was the killer in the case, but it's just now a matter of time of figuring out who was actually using it. You know what I mean? So I'm just gonna leave it at that. And dude, what are your conclusions for the case and for everything, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now I'm going pretty much. I think originally I wasn't, because originally I was going pretty hard. I mean, once again, opinion, allegedly, blah blah blah, the usual disclaimers. It's an entertainment show. The interview seemed to focus pretty heavily on it, with opinions that seemed to make it think that the detectives thought it was him. And I was kind of thinking, well, that I was thinking this even before I read the part about the peeping Tom part, if it was also him. The detectives seemed to think that Kegan alone was Anthony Shots, or sorry, Kegan was Anthony Shots and someone else helped.
Yes.
And
Real quickly, I think I can shed some more light to everyone and to you as well, because I missed this one detail. So the interview that you read, the transcript, the big ass transcript, happened in 2020, summer 2020. Now, Kegan's father, Tony Kline, he was raided, I believe, in relation to Delphi Murders for the first time only in late 2021. So that's why they didn't bring up his father in the thing that you've read, is because they only raided the father over a year later.
Okay, well, that makes sense. All right, that could explain some of the shift in the narrative as well from different sources. Okay, so yeah, I mean, originally I was leaning pretty heavily the one person, and then I thought, well, maybe it could be somebody. Before I realized that he did actually have some kind of social life, and I guess even a girlfriend, though even she may have. Anyways, you never know what happened with that either, and why they're not in a relationship anymore. Yeah, I just thought, well, it could be somebody, because sometimes you have pathetic people that target children because they can't relate to people their own age. It's like this vicious cycle of like, you spend too much time focusing on people you think are intellectually your inferiors or more naive or easily manipulated, which is true in this case, because it was the poor girls that were getting or minors that were getting tricked into stuff, on top of all the other exploitation stuff going on, the materials he was trading around. But yeah, I thought maybe, is it possible somebody got themselves a little too excited? Someone let hormones and bad obsessions drive them to obsess about people in a way that he built up this fantasy life, and then he went to go actually meet, and then they laughed at him, and then he lost it, or then he realized that the rest of his like web was going to come untangled.
I just really want to say that I personally don't think they laughed at him, because
well, yeah, no. I mean, did we say? I mean, not laugh at him, but act like, oh, who's this weird dude? Like, this not. It's not Anthony Shots, right?
think they were really scared. I think that the
Yeah.
sense was that it wasn't like, oh, who are you? Get away. It was, I got the sense that the girls were frightened at the last moments of their lives. They were like scared.
No, I agree. Yeah, and let me not make it sound like the end of Carrie
Of course, no,
or
no, yes,
something.
yes,
They're
no.
all they're not all gonna laugh at him. But yeah, no, I mean there was something. Yeah, obviously, people can react out of rage and humiliation for things that aren't real, right? So someone could react out of rage. Someone who wasn't reasonable could react out of rage for a perception that was not reasonable. So that's also that was kind of baked into my assumptions. But it doesn't really matter. Why would someone do that, etc. I don't think it's valid here. I think that was the point. Was that what really happened seemed to be instead a very calculated. I mean, that
Yes.
was yeah, calculated. Like, I mean, it
Yes.
was grooming. People talk. I mean, it's unfortunate. Grooming is such a like. It's like, what word is not going to be political a month from now? So grooming has become such a political word. Both everyone's throwing it around. There's a real thing called grooming. There really are people that groom juveniles,
Yes.
underage
Yes.
people, yeah, for stuff. And this is a classic example of that. This is so it kind of really looks like he was doing that.
And look,
And
and
it
look,
kind of, yeah.
no, dude, I'm so sorry for like
No way. Yeah,
interrupting.
yeah, no worries.
But the one thing I wanted to mention, and you brought it up, like calculated. Yes, like I was just thinking about
Yeah.
the same thing. Like look, we went over this. The murder spot, the murder scene was somewhere off the road in Rogan Lawn's property. Like the dude, when he told Liberty, like if this scenario was correct, whoever was behind Anthony Shots' account, they told Liberty to meet them at the end of the Monon High Bridge Trail. I believe they already knew where they would take the victims next, because they took the victims over the bank, like to the very foresty area. Once again, I want to bring up, and this is one of the only facts that I still hold true throughout all of my other like Delphi crappy videos that I've made over the years, that the place where the murders took place, I do think it's the best place to murder in the Delphi area. I think it's the best spot to kill someone. So I think it was pre-planned. I believe that Anthony Schatz knew where he was gonna kill them, in advance. That's where I'm gonna leave it at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's a good segue into the, let's call it the 2-on-2 theory, the 2 versus 2 theory.
Oh yeah.
So that's the theory. I mean, that Anthony Shots, so Kegan, and another person. So originally, I thought the another person was going to be like a friend. I thought the person they were, and I'm still not totally clear that they weren't insinuating that there was a third besides him and his father, who we talked about, and roommates and stuff like that. There was somebody whose phone that his phone had connected to something, almost like, by the way, because he had mentioned like VPNs and stuff like that, and why wouldn't I use this and why wouldn't you use that? Well, why didn't you, dude? Because you got caught and you didn't do it. So if you're so smart, I think he thinks he's smart. They may have been smart enough to do things like turn off phones. I will say he's put a tremendous amount of effort into it. I mean, this was like a job. He was doing it. Wasn't just like, we should be really clear that I think there were a lot of different people that were potentially victimized by this Anthony Shots account, but these two people that live nearby, where we think the person who ran the Anthony Shots account lived, died, and that person who ran that account, who had a bunch of phones, did a bunch of suspicious searching and a bunch of erasing and a bunch of other weird stuff. And also corresponded with somebody about how they were supposed to meet the person and just a bunch of really suspicious stuff. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I guess the one thing I do wonder is, gosh, is it also the father in the ski mask? I mean, that would be,
Yeah, I
I
think so.
mean,
But
yeah.
what
I mean,
what
so he's, because it seems like you really need that direction. I know I was saying no before. Now I'm like, I'm not sure if someone that's this degenerate, that motivated, maybe it really is him, like scouting it out and starting to get excited about it.
Yeah, well, okay. Let's for the closing thoughts, I guess. Let's
Yeah.
shift the topic to what happens now, because I was just thinking to myself, God damn, this must be a huge nightmare for the prosecution and for the investigators. This must be a nightmare, like connecting all the dots, and then everyone's so flaky. Like,
I
what do you
think,
think happens next, and how fast do things happen?
to use your nightmare example, I actually feel like this is when the fever breaks. Like you've been having nightmares, you're having that, that fever nightmare,
Yeah,
where like you're trying to resolve something in your fever nightmare, and it doesn't resolve,
yeah,
and then this is like when the fever breaks and all of a sudden the dream makes sense. Like I think time's on their side. I
right.
think there's enough crap to sit on both of these people for potentially. Like they, you know what I mean? Like the there's no statute of limitations on murder, so
Yes.
this isn't going away. You know what I mean? They could these the Kegan Kline or his father or whoever else, whoever did it, whoever did it, whoever did these murders, they can drag them out of their hospital bed when they're 80 and try them for this. So yeah, it's not going away. So I don't know. I think I disagree on that point. I
Mhm.
feel like I feel like they're not shitting bricks at this point.
Yeah.
On the prosecuting side, I think they're like, oh yeah, we're just gonna let you boil. Let you boil. You ready? You ready to talk yet? You ready? And they'll crack this
But
thing.
but but, but
Yeah.
dude, but dude, I wouldn't be so confident that they will crack this thing only because the police really dropped the ball, in my opinion, because of this. Because of this screenshot, dude. This is, if you can see the date, man. They searched Keegan's home on February 25th, 2017. They knew about Anthony Schott's account just 1 week or something like that within the murders. Within the same month of February, I believe, the way I understood this case, they knew about Anthony Shots within the first month. It's not like it came out just now. They knew this thing for over 5 years now, and they still haven't connected the dots. So 5 years, and I just don't like. It's hard to get behind ISP because they really have been smoking that weed. You know what I mean in this case. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's frustrating, and it makes you wonder how much of what they weren't telling us was like them sitting on something like. I mean, it seems like they were definitely sitting on something like this, and they wanted to say something. I do wonder if they're so worried about stuff getting overturned in court these days.
But then they
Yeah.
brought up a bunch of other people, or I don't know if they brought up a bunch of other people, but I don't know. Maybe this was all along. Maybe this was their idea all along. The two sketches, like maybe this was their whole play since the beginning. But it seemed like they did that whole raid in 25 in the 25th of February 2017, and then they just kind of we didn't hear anything about the connection. But I don't know, maybe they were just gathering sources. I mean, I'm pretty sure I would have done an even worse job as an investigator, because I don't have any investigative skills, so maybe I should not crap on ISP that much. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm just excited. I'm just excited that something's happening, and I'm looking forward to see what happens next in the Delphi Murders case, dude. So I'm gonna. I don't want to talk anymore today. But dude, your thoughts about everything? Anything you left off, and you still want to mention, dude?
Man, I'm right there with you. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I'm just excited to see what happens to this case. Maybe someday I'll put one of my nutty rants uh, on a separate thing as one of the extras we look at. But time is fleeting. It's so many things to do and so little time. So we'll see.
Yeah, and thank you very much, guys, for sticking around for this episode. I hope it made sense, and I hope you have a better picture of what's actually happening in the Delphi Murders case. We tried our best here, and I really enjoyed this episode. I will catch you. We'll catch you on the next week's episode. As always, until then, please just stay safe and peace out, guys.